Over the past week or two, race hysteria in the WNBA has somehow reached yet another inflection point. The league is currently in the midst of what really might be the single most contrived racism scandal, certainly in any professional sport, at least since the fake noose in Bubba Wallace's garage. Specifically, a bunch of WNBA players have come out claiming that they've been victimized by racial slurs and other forms of racist attacks. Like a lot of players are claiming. In other words, they're now accusing the people who have started showing up to WNBA games for the first time in more than 2 decades of being horrible.
Alyssa Thomas made another offensive comment to Caitlin Clark about the racism issue, and honestly, it's pretty embarrassing. She really crossed the line this time, and fans are not going to let this slide.
You know, speaking of relationships, Alyssa Thomas, during the playoffs, she spoke out and condemned.
Who could forget her incredible performance?
Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable.
It's old news now, but let's take a moment to appreciate how she didn't even bother apologizing. Nope, instead, she stood by every word she said, owning her outrageous remarks like a true queen of audacity.
You women out there, y'all petty, man. Hey, LeBron, you're 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty, girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world.
Oh, you are.
Y'all should be thanking that girl for getting y'all ass.
It seems like you're asking to remove or revise something that may violate content guidelines. Could you clarify what specific content you're referring to so I can help adjust or remove it accordingly?
Careful when you say like the Fever fans, because I don't think it's the Fever fans. I think it's the people that wanted Caitlin Clark to be a certain type of way and they thought that she was, and so they became Caitlin Clark fans, assuming that, and then they realized like, oh no, she's actually not.
It all began when Thomas openly criticized Caitlin Clark's fanbase for what she called racial hostility. This wasn't just a casual remark. It was a bold critique of the biases and double standards lurking behind the surface of the league. Honestly, it needed to be said. If we're all celebrating equality while turning a blind eye to the clear racial issues at play, then what are we really accomplishing? Alyssa Thomas's frustration with how she and her teammates were treated wasn't just a personal complaint. It was a call to action.
And her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly.
If you think this came out of nowhere, it's time for a reality check. Every controversy has a root, and this one goes back to when fans accused Carrington of being unsportsmanlike after that infamous eye poke on Clark. What started as the usual online frenzy quickly took a darker turn with clear racial undertones. That's when Alyssa Thomas decided she'd had enough. She didn't just defend her teammate, she pulled back the curtain and revealed the ugly truth behind the criticism.
A little bit of a shoulder there. Not a little bit, a lot of a shoulder there for Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah, they're not going to look at this.
That's got thing, Mike.
Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. Why is it that when a black player shows fire, they're called aggressive, but when someone else does it, it's just passion? Alyssa Thomas wasn't afraid to call out this double standard. Clark's fans labeled Carrington as unsportsmanlike, but would they have reacted the same way if the roles were reversed?
It's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
These comments didn't come out of nowhere. This isn't just about one play or one game, it's about a bigger pattern. According to Thomas, black athletes are often judged more harshly, with their intensity seen as a threat rather than a strength. It's the kind of bias that's been ignored for too long, and Thomas decided it was time to bring it into the open.
Careful when you say like the Fever fans, because I don't think it's the Fever fans. I think it's the people that wanted Caitlin Clark to be a certain type of way and they thought that she was, and so they became Caitlin Clark fans, assuming that, and then they realized like, oh no, she's actually not.
The feud between Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas has taken an unexpected turn, and this time, it's no longer about basketball stats or tactics. Instead, Alyssa Thomas has made Caitlin Clark the focus of a heated racial debate, dragging Clark into a conversation she never asked to be part of. As always, Thomas didn't hold back, and social media quickly went into a frenzy. But let's break this down. Was Thomas's criticism of racism in the WNBA justified, or is it just another case of misplaced frustration? Caitlin Clark is undeniably one of the most exciting talents the WNBA has ever seen. Her dynamic play, sharp shooting, and leadership on the court have made her a household name. She's not just a star, she's a game changer. Yet, Alyssa Thomas seems more focused on criticizing Clark's rise to stardom than on recognizing her undeniable skill.
It felt like the WNBA wasn't ready for what Caitlin Clark was going to bring.
Thomas has accused the WNBA of focusing too much on players like Caitlin Clark while ignoring black athletes, claiming there's a racial bias in how the league markets its stars. But let's set the record straight. Clark's rise to fame isn't due to any hidden agenda. It's because she delivers on the court, pure and simple. Her jaw-dropping performances have earned her a top spot, and if the league is giving her attention, it's because she's the one drawing in the fans. Alyssa Thomas has made a name for herself as a fierce competitor, but her off-court actions have sparked controversy. Recently, she's spoken out about what she sees as racial disparities in how players are marketed. Her argument is that players like Caitlin Clark get more attention because of their race, not their talent.
Ball is headed in a great direction, but nah, we don't want fans that are going to degrade us and call us racial names. I mean, we already see what's happening in the world and what we have to deal with in that aspect. And, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but...
Here's the problem. Thomas's comments don't contribute to meaningful discussions about equality. Instead, they come across as sour grapes. Caitlin Clark didn't create the system, nor does she control how the league markets its players. Blaming Clark for systemic issues isn't just unfair. It's lazy. Thomas often points out what she sees as double standards in how black and white players are viewed. She argues that black athletes are labeled as too aggressive, while white players like Clark are praised for the same traits. But here's the reality. Caitlin Clark is celebrated because she backs up her confidence with results.
To latch on to Caitlin Clark and then use her as, this fuel to be able to be the way that they want.
Let's not forget, Caitlin Clark faces her fair share of criticism too. She's been called cocky and arrogant by critics who overlook her record-breaking performances. The reality is, criticism and praise come with being in the spotlight. Maybe Alyssa Thomas should focus more on her own game than on policing how the media views her competitors. What truly sets Caitlin Clark apart, besides her exceptional talent, is her ability to stay focused. While Alyssa Thomas stirs up controversy, Clark lets her game do the talking. She's refused to get involved in the back and forth, showing that she's not just a star, but a true class act.
Something needs to be done, whether it's, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it.
Clark's silence isn't complicity, it's maturity. She understands that getting pulled into these debates would only distract her from what she's here to do, play basketball. If only Alyssa Thomas could take a lesson from her. While Thomas claims to be calling out injustice, it's worth asking what she's actually doing to create real change. Her critiques are loud, but often lack substance. Complaining about the WNBA's marketing doesn't tackle the real barriers black athletes face. Instead, it just stirs up unnecessary divisions between players.
I want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled.
Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be at the center of this debate. She's worked hard for her success and shouldn't have to apologize for it. If Thomas is truly concerned about inequality, maybe she should focus on finding solutions rather than targeting players who've done nothing wrong. It's hard to ignore the hint of jealousy in Alyssa Thomas's comments. Caitlin Clark's rise has been nothing short of spectacular, and it's clear Thomas isn't happy about sharing the spotlight. But instead of using Clark's success as motivation, Thomas has chosen to tear her down.
People should not be using my name to push those agendas. It's disappointing. It's not acceptable. But yeah, this league is a league I grew up admiring and wanting to be a part of. Some of the women in this league were my biggest idols and role models growing up and helped me want to achieve this moment right here that I get to play in every single.
This isn't a good look for Thomas. The best way to prove her worth isn't through inflammatory statements, but by dominating on the court. If she wants the same level of attention as Clark, she needs to earn it. The WNBA is already fighting for visibility and respect in the wider sports world. The last thing it needs is internal divisions. Alyssa Thomas's comments only create unnecessary tension and distract from the league's progress.